All right, fellas, this video is about cables. See that? See that end? Let's see if it'll focus. All right, see that end? All right, so this is about cables, not just about this machine, this Cub Cadet, but it's on this Cub Cadet. Contractor Mike broke this. This was in good shape. This happened right after I made this. We'll call it a truss. We'll call it a girdle, right? Probably more like a girdle. I think of it as like you ever see like a small block Chevy or some of the others where they have the studs, the rocker arm studs sticking up, and they've made these stud girdles that go across. So a girdle isn't just for ladies, right? A girdle, it does the same thing for the ladies. For the ladies. It supports something. So I made a stud girdle to hold in all of these cables in, because there's an array of cables on this machine, and they're coming out, and when they come out, the cables don't work right. And see, like on this one, it's got these little clips that you might see. You guys know, but I don't know if you can see it or not. I can't see. I should put my glasses on. Tired this morning, so I can't. Plus, there's always glare in here, right? To get lighting for videos, you wind up with glare, right? It's the bane of any photographer and videographer. So these clips break. They're usually pretty good, or they don't grab, or the hole is too large and they start pulling out. And then when you leverage the cable in different directions, right, it puts pressure on this mechanism in here, this fastening mechanism. And then when the cable pops out, right, you lose your actuation, and eventually you just break the cable. Or in this case, the machine keeps moving forward or doesn't want to move forward, and you're like, stop, oh my God, where is it going? With the blade spinning. And that's why you have dead man, handles and stuff. I remember I didn't have any of that on my old Arian snowblower that I found at the dump. This is going back when I first got here and I started doing stuff. And you had to go around to the side and throw a handle to stop the auger. That was dangerous. Well, my neighbor had installed a pretty new fence, chain link at the time, and I got too close to it and it sucked in the links and started pulling in the wire and climbing up the fence. I'm like, oh my God. Yeah. So cables, look, I got a lot of those older snowblowers, a lot of older machines, and, some of the older machines did use cables, but listen, cable development's been going on for years, but it was nice to have a nice solid rod, like a 1/4-inch rod with an end, right, a ball end or whatever. And they would break and wear out or rust or whatever. You could bend them back. After like 50 years or so. No, this broke right away, and I'll get into why this broke in a minute. I talked about this on a live show. So this is about stud girdle, making a stud girdle, a cable girdle, a mounting girdle, a brace, a bracket, whatever you want to call it. And now, of course, this is for really any cabling system, but for most cable applications, you're not going to make something like this. This is a machine that I look at this machine and I think of it as a very good machine. I've had to do certain work to it. It's really not for contractors. He now uses it more as a backup machine. It's like a high-end homeowner's machine, and it's a nice one. But it's not for regular contractor duty. It just can't hold up to that kind of abuse and use. But it is a good machine. It does have some issues, and this is one of them. And I can fix a machine like this where I don't recommend this for lawn mowers and stuff like that, because the price point isn't there. Let's face it. This thing's made the guy some money. He got it at a good price. I fixed it, put it back into use, made it nice again. And he's broken it, and I fixed it. And generally speaking, it's a nice machine. There's a lot of money there. It costs money for this machine, and it does cost money to use it and repair it. So there is some money there, I suppose, and value there in making this cable girdle. But it's not for everything. But these concepts and ideas can be applied towards just about anything you're doing. If you're doing something a little bit out of the ordinary, which is kind of what I do. I do a lot of out of the ordinary. Now, why this broke, just real quick, and you can see how frayed it is. This is the part that controls the blade. I think it's on the right side, and you'll see it in the video. And I had mentioned in this video that the handles were sticking. They were stuck. part of it was the cable, but part of it, whoever attached the cables, maybe he did it. He over tightened the handle, the bolts that hold the handle, the actuator handle to the handlebar, and it's, you know, sometimes they're flopping around, but if you over tighten them or use the wrong hardware, which he did when he put this on, he used the wrong hardware, and then the handles would not return. They were getting stuck, and in this case, he used the wrong piece of hardware, and it came in the kit, and he didn't use it anyway. He doesn't pay attention, and so what was happening was, instead of being able to swivel to allow the cable to remain straight, because the strength in the cable is really, yes, you could take a cable and route it and make nice gentle curves, but if you restrict especially the end, what was happening, it was doing this, and it was creating, I hit my glass, it was bending it every time he flexed that handle. This end is supposed to swivel and allow for a nice, clean, easy movement. It wasn't doing that. It was binding, and it flexed hard in the end of the cable, and eventually it just snapped. And he couldn't understand that. So there are things about cables that you would want to know, you would need to know if you want to understand proper operation of a cable and allow it to work comfortably, normally, keeping it lubricated, and having it be reliable. The other thing I found on this machine, and I show it, is that people just take tie wraps and they bunch them all together and they pull things out of the way. It was a mess back there. And not only was it catching, but it was binding the cable, forcing it to bend in a way that, you know, like you would never want to bend like that on a cable if you can help it. You can do it for a time. I mean, cables can do things that rods can't, because then rods, to make the kind of bends and things and turns on a machine, you then need additional jack shafts and rocker shafts and linkage shafts and in order to do that. It's like the old cars or the old throttle shafts. They had these big things that would move and turn and with all kinds of bushings, and that was actually really kind of neat and fun looking at some of the old 40s and 50s cars that had that, because they didn't have cables. And then I think the first thing was like the choke cable kind of came to the car. So I worked on aircraft for a lot of years, and eventually, towards the end of my career, you know, they came out with what we called fly-by-wire, because initially all aircrafts were cable connected. They were all cables and pulleys, everything, all the flight services, everything. And over time, you started to be able to do this with hydraulics and wires and servos and electrical servo motors. And then, of course, when computers came on, you were able to do everything with wire. And the cables went away. I don't think it's going to happen. Well, you know, if you think about it, right, it might kind of happen because with lawnmowers, because right now we're all electric. So once you have a big electric battery, you can start running servos and such. And maybe one day you won't even see cables. It'll just be all electrical, all wires, all servo motors. And probably some of you are thinking, oh my God, I don't know how to do any of that. Let's get started on this video and you'll see what I did. Motor's running good, everything starts right up, runs good, except some don't feel right in the transmission or the axle assembly or something. It will drag sometimes. And you can tell even when it's running, you can feel it pulse. It's like it's fighting. Yeah, it's looking real good. Still super clean, let it sit for a while, took a break. Just rinsed it off. Yeah, everything looks real clean. A lot of debris, see, this is just some of it that kicked out, but you can see a lot of it gets stuck in all those areas, and there's the brake over there, I see it. So we'll get the tractor and we'll lift it up in the back so I can get to it a little bit better. Let's see. Let's see if it'll do it because it's wet. It's sitting here long enough, it should be. Let's stop. Yeah. Okay. All right. Good enough. Yeah. And I'll get to a few other little areas. We'll probably just give it I'll give it like a quick oil change. The oil is actually pretty clean, so I'm not going to do the filter. I might just do an oil change. We'll lube whatever we can. Check the filter and clean this plug. And this, I like this motor. This is the motor that Brett and I want. stick it on like a tie master or a turf master. Yeah, that doesn't seem right, does it, fellas? Yeah, see how it's getting hung? Yeah, oh, that's not in the right spot. Okay, that's his problem, I think. All right, yeah, that's not up in there, and it probably popped out. So we'll have to make a clamp or something to keep it up in there, something to do that. I bet you that's one of the problems. Yeah, it's cable shit. Like this thing, they're made okay, but they're not really for, you know, full-time use. This is like high-end homeowner. All right, let's get to work. Let me get this cleaned up. We'll leave it to dry for a little while, and then I'll bring it in later. Oh yeah, it's clean. It's clean everywhere. Clean enough for sure. Yeah, that's looking good. Yeah, I think we got everything blowed out as best as possible. Let's take a peek from the other side. Yeah, CC760 ES, 33 wide cut. Yeah, that looks good. All right, let's bring it in. Super clean. Get yours now. All right, it's the next day. So here's the cable in question. So right now, it's under tension. You see what it's doing? And then it goes in. And it gets stuck too. It gets stuck moving forward. And then if you pull the top handle, which I can't reach, but oh yeah, and now she's all kind of stuck. And she's all the way out here, and she's stuck. So what I'm thinking is we want to get it to stay in there, and it probably will, but what'll happen is it'll loosen up and it'll fall down. So we can make a block-off plate. Now I want to get some lubricant in that. We're going to see if we can get our lube tool in there, and the boot came off, a little boot on the end, and I want to see if there's any way I can get some lubricant up top while she's all sloppy like this. Now, either a bolt can go in here, it would have to be a pretty big bolt, or a bolt with a lot of washers, because if it wasn't a really big bolt, it will move from the vibrations, and then this will happen again. Or, see this stop here, it's actually adjustable for neutral or reverse. You gotta lift it up and over. Well, taking on that, it's just screwed in. We can make a block-off plate, right? Something small and nice. And then keep it out of the way so that the clips work, just like here. And keep it in place and try that and see how that goes. That way, if it does try to loosen up, it can't just loosen up and fall down. And then, of course, if you want to take the cable out, you just remove the screws, remove this piece, and deal with the cable. So first I'm going to start off with getting that lubed up, however that is. Put some kind of lube in there, let it drain in. I'm going to try my luber, my Johnny luber, cable luber. We'll try that in a minute. I'll see you guys in a minute. I did get some lubricant in there and up there, but you know, there's not a lot you can do. I can't get the cable lubricant in. I'm not taking the cable off. It's going to be a pain in the neck. There's no reason to do that. So, another little boot back on. Let's spread these out. Hopefully we don't break them. You can see now there's a lot of tension here. That's not right. That tie there is causing the problem. So let's see what else we got. Let's see what we got going on here with these ties. Yeah, that's no good. And this tie too. Yeah. Yeah, see how these ties are causing problems? Yeah, it fits in there like light and easy. Now, what we can do is make a brace or something to lock it in, but I think really the problem is some of it is that you've got the wrong kind of tension on this. Now let me actuate this. All right, so now the handle is up. Now this still wants to pull out, see? See what's going on? She's rolling nice. Look how nice that's rolling. And it's getting stuck down, so it's been bent. Yes, it's also been bent and it's too tight. So that bracket will help. All right, now here's what I'm thinking. All right, so I got this clip in better, but we want to make, they're all like this, and that's why this one fell. That's different though, but we can deal with that later. So what I'm thinking is, just to get started, I got a nice big piece. It's not doing anything. So let's come, because we got that one too. So why don't we just go all the way up, right, like that, all the way up to the top. Here's a nice piece here. So we'll measure it over, first step. I want room for bolts. We got plenty of room. I want room for like 1/4-20. And then we'll come down, right, make this nice and square. And then we'll come back. So it's basically going to be like this. And we can come down a little bit, but we'll try to make it even with the bottom. Come over, down, cut this square out. Then I can shove it up. I can slot it, and I can make the slots. So this is somewhat tapered. So these bushed ends here, it's like a bushing. It's like the grommeting here is on a bit of a taper, right, going this way. So it's smaller here. It gets bigger towards the substrate here where it clips onto. So that means that when we make our holes, we can make a hole or a slot that's about this size, somewhere in the middle, and we can keep finagling it, and it'll be slotted. So you slide it up over these things here, and then come down towards the metal. I'll tap for 1/4-20. I'll have a 1/4-20 here, maybe one over here, and two here, right? So maybe one here, and then two here, something like that. And then you slide it up over the cables, and then pull it in and screw it in, and it'll pull in on this section here about midway towards the end. We'll have to mic that up and see what that is. And it'll sandwich it and push it in, and it won't allow it to come down, and it won't allow it to come out, and it can't go in. So you'll see what I mean in a minute. All right, I'm all set up. I got my lube. I'm clamped nice. This shouldn't go anywhere because, you know, it's a vibrating saw. These Bosches are the shit, fellas. It's got a little blower attachment, so it'll actually blow a little bit, I guess, from the fan in here. And then this control here controls this wheel down here, which aligns the blade, bayonet mount, and it pushes the blade out like this. It oscillates this way too, so it's not just up and down. Add a little bit, one more clamp here. So I got a double clamp here, one leaning over the other, like Big Brother. And then we'll come this way, a little bit of coolant, a little bit of, you know, cutting oil or something on there, any kind of oil to keep it going. So we'll go this way first while we have a little bit more strength, less flappy. See, it keeps it from flapping a lot and having issues. Now we can come this way, or we can just come this way and leave this piece for something else. So let's just check, give it a little, you know, cool, keep that blade cool. It's getting a little beat. I've had these blades for a while. Done. Now let me clean this up. Now, what would have been nice to do is leave it and set up my holes, and while we have the bigger piece, we could have used that to mount this and work it. So now we're going to have to do it in a vise. So it makes it a little bit harder to work a piece like this. But we got to go from some kind of a dimension. We got to pick a side, what we would call a reference line, a datum line, or something like that. Let's go check it. All right, believe it or not, the plate is pretty square, except for maybe towards the ends, but it's pretty square. So this is our center line for the two cables. This is the bottom, right? You might want to put a B on that. And that's our top. And this is the left side when you're looking at it. So what we need, I measured it with the calipers, those strain reliefs on the cable, they're a 1/2 inch. A little bit bigger, actually. So, but we're going to go to a 1/2 inch or maybe a little bit smaller. Let me see how I want to do it. So we'll do a center punch, we'll do 2 holes. And then we're going to slot it after we get the holes in. And the last hole is up over here. But I don't think we're going to do that yet. Well, let me see how this fits, and then we'll figure out what we want to do with up that area up there. These are the two main ones that are going to be problematic and have the most stress on them, as we can see. Let me get going. The holes are drilled about as tight as I can make it. Now we're going to come in and just make a slot. We'll worry about the mounting holes later, but we'll make a slot and see how it fits. Slide it up there, and then we can locate this guy on that side. Let me set it up. I'm going to do this, and I'll take a break, grab some food, and I'll finish up the setup of this. Let's see. Now, it's pretty tight. It might hold its shape. We'll find out real quick. We'll try to keep the line, maybe. We'll see. You can always file it. Nice, first cut, nice. First cut, very good. I think this is going to work. And we'll try to keep that line. I'm just sneaking in. I took a little bit more off. I left the line. This one I took the line off. So I just took a little bit more off. I'm just expanding these guys out a little bit. Oop. All right, so I started off with a 1/2 inch, and we're going to open it up a little bit, but we're going to use kind of mill this a little bit, just to try to keep it straight. Just a little bit more. All right, I'm going to use both hands, but I'm going to open it up slowly because we don't really know what's going to work, but I don't want to go much bigger. Get some lube on that. And you can see I already did the other one. We'll have to probably open up the slot a little more too. All right, we're doing good so far, but I did make a mistake. So layout line, layout line, layout line, and this is a reference line too, but we made this a little short. See, that's all the purchase we have up there. And this is a problem as well, like I figured. It's already starting to come out. But opening up these slots and holes, as you can see, I'm able to actually lay that on there. It starts to go on, and it will, as we bolt it down, we may have to push it a little bit, but it'll be fine. And then we're pretty much in the right spot there. So I'm going to notch this here. I'll put an ellipse or something. I'll have to mill that in. See, there's your layout line there. See? So we're all good there. And that's a center. So we'll go do that, and then we'll fit it up. And if we have to put some washers underneath it as a bush, because there's probably about 1/8 of an inch here that we want, we're going to have to stick this up about 1/8 of an inch so that we can kind of compress it down on this sort of grommet strain relief area. I'm stepping on all these cords. That's my goal. That way this whole assembly will be locked in. So we'll definitely have a bolt over here. We got room, and we'll probably have a 1 or 2 over here, or maybe 1 here, 1 down there somewhere. Certainly 1 here, and maybe 1 on the bottom. But we'll get to that in a bit. Let me keep working. I got to figure how I'm going to notch that. Unfortunately, I cut it a little too short. I don't know what I was thinking, but I keep getting distracted today. Once again, another day of that. Let me settle in. Right now you can really start to see it taking shape. Now I want to remove just that little bit of material there. Maybe even a little bit over there, just a little bit more, but you'll see what I mean. And you can see she's starting to lay on there. She's just about right. We want to get past this step. There's a step here. So you could leave it there, but there's another step behind it that's a little wider. Well, there's a little bit of extra material there that we don't really need. Just a little bit. Up here we can go a little wider, and I'll show you what I mean by step. And I think it's all in the right position. Like, it's not fighting the cables. They're dead on straight. But I'm not going to move the camera to show you. Maybe I'll get it in the other clip, like with the other camera. I like these cheap generals because they're just good for, it's just good for like general work because it's a general. Let's move you, we don't need you. Yeah, that's close. And that is a little bit more than a half an inch, almost 5/8. And then there's one down here, and that is bigger. Yeah, that's 5/8, so that's like another 1/16. Even if it grabs that one step, that might be good too, right? There's really nothing wrong with that either. It can grab that step, let it be a little tighter, in my book. And then we can just bush it. See how it just sits there? My worry is that if I widen it too much, it'll slide on and it won't really grip because it'll start to push into the plastic rubber and it'll distort and maybe it won't grip as good. Whereas here it grips really well. You know, the problem is if I go too big, I can't put the material back. And there's only about a 1/16 of an inch difference between that, each step, this step, that step, and the one that's up against the body. And the alignment is good, everything else is good. We actually don't even need anything there. You don't need a lot of pressure. So I think I'm gonna leave it. Let me spot out the bolt holes. But before I set up for the bolt holes, you can just kind of get a little bit more of a close-up. You can see what I'm talking about. All right, I think we should leave it like that, fellas, and just work it in, and let me set up the bolt holes. All right, so I've spotted my holes where, you know, try to stag them a little bit, and let's just sort of fit that on there, get it so straight. Now, what am I gonna spot that with? Let me go see, because I want to transfer mark. So I'm trying to avoid those big holes, right? The slots, or the slots for extraction. I'll spot them and I'll drill them out. And what I'll do is I'm going to tap this plate because it's, you know, kind of thick enough for a couple of threads. And we'll see. And then I'll put in, let me show you what I got. Actually, I like to part out things. I just parted out a couple of Briggs motors. I got some nice 1/4-20s. So that'll be more than long enough. And what we could do is thread, this is more like a jam nut, so I gotta pass a tap through it. But what we'll do is we'll put a nut, if this works, we'll put a nut and move it up to wherever it needs to go. And then when we'll screw this in, put a little Loctite on the thread, get it in where we want it, nice, with the right tension on. When we have the tension good, then you run this nut down against this substrate here, and that should lock it, especially with the Loctite. It won't go anywhere. And then you don't necessarily need a bushing in between, right? So let me see how that works out. All right, good. I was able to take the nice Stabilo grease pencil. I was able to get in there and just hold it nice and just kind of get a nice little mark there. Stabilos are the best, and they're grease pencils, so they come off easy, but they write on everything. Now we can just center punch. And that bolt, those bolts are long enough so that if I want to put another nut from behind, I can still do that, which is probably what I'm going to do. Anyway, right, just to make sure, so that it doesn't go anywhere. Oh, you just lost a light. All right, let me knock those things up. I got to replace the battery. Uh-oh. It's moving a little bit. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go put a jack stand underneath and tweak this a little bit. I got at least 2 stands. You can't see them, but I'll show you later. But I just cleaned up a set of 1940s jack stands that I've had forever. And I just had to clean them up and oil them a little bit. It's just in beautiful shape. Yeah, now I can push to my heart's content and not have to worry. All right, let me set up for the hole, for the thread. I think what we're gonna do is, yeah, we'll double nut, because this way the threads are gonna be more for setting up the distance and setting up this bracket, and then we'll lock it in with the double nut. All right, so number 7 is correct, but we're going to go a little smaller than number 8 because there's not a lot of meat here. All right, last hole. I want to do this by hand because it's still thin metal. So we want these threads for our setup because it's really going to help us out. So we got to be very, very careful. All right, I'm going to finish this up. And I'm going to go take those nuts, those nuts, and run the tap through those too. And I got to find another set as well. And then we'll put it on. All right, we're all set up. So I got these nuts. These will go from behind. All right, and then I set this guy up. And let's just kind of walk it in a little bit at a time. There we go. Bring it in even. Oh, it's windy. Yeah, that's going in nice and tight too. The threads feel good. We don't want to over tension it, but we want to get them even, as equidistant as possible. Well, let me see, I'm going up here. You're not going to see me, so I'm actuating. So now that's neutral. This is nice. Yeah. Now we got to make this brake work. It was just getting hung up. All right, nice job. But this is what I'm kind of settling in on. So this is all adjusted, and I did the best I could with the cable routing. We can put a little tension, but after talking to Mike, he realizes that this is something that when he loads his machines, he can get it hooked on something, damage it. It was kind of sticking out way out here, so I cut off all of the existing ties and everything, and I went over it, and so this is what I came up with as I started to split it out. We have our throttle cable. Everything's been lubed. Come down here. It looks pretty straight. Comes down nice. The throttle cable comes over that way. The way I clamp with tie wraps is I don't just bundle everything together. I separate out the runs, and I clamp them to here. Then this one cable comes over this way, goes up to here. These were laying on the outside, so you could accidentally grab it, when you're looking for the handle. Also, this cable here was rubbing on this corrugated, and it was starting to damage the wire, so I wrapped that up with some tape. I disconnected it, I cleaned and lubed the connections there, and then I moved it to the other side of this rail here, and then adjusted it, made sure it was tied in nice. This I tied in nice, as you can see up there. I started lubricating up here. I'm going to put one more run of lube on that, and I'll put the little caps on. And then down here, this was dropped. So what I did was I just put, our Briggs, fuel line hose, some just old hose, split it, ran it in, tie wrap on either side, and then the tie wrap up there. So this is not going to fall down. It's not hanging anymore. It's not going to vibrate. Some of these, by the way, they were really vibrating. They were slapping around. These machines, just vibration is a thing. The only other thing I don't like is this, but that's the way it is. It's good enough. Now let me get you in a little tighter, and we're going to actuate this. So I blew this out, and I cleaned it out, and you can see that, let's see, where's the handle? Let me just show you the positions of the handle. So it's way up there. I can't reach it right now. But it's up, all right? So that's your normal position, and the brake should be on. And it's pretty close to adjustment. It's starting to apply the brake. I think it could use a little bit more adjustment, but I don't see how you would do that other than maybe take the spring perch and tighten it up or pull it back. You can see what's underneath there. You guys see that? See, that's what you have to work with. So we'll have to, yard test it, right? Grass test it. But these poles ride on this piece here, and you see the way it's shaped. So when the poles come out and go into this area, there is no disc brake. Right now it's beginning to apply the disc brake because the handles are up. So when you go to release the handles, they spring up, and the machine should stop. He doesn't really need a lot of braking. We don't have a lot of hills here. But it was jamming up on him. Now let's actuate it. Let me set up the camera. Now you see, now it's going more neutral. That's it, because the handle is down. You see how it fits into this area here? This V-notch, that's providing space. These sort of poles here, they're actually pushing on the brake pad. And what I'm noticing is it needs a new brake pad. That's what it really needs. That you don't really need to adjust it. You need to replace the brake pad. And when it gets hung up, you'll wear the brake pad. So now when I let go of the handle, right, it's starting to put the brake on. And if that brake pad was a little bit better, you'd see more of the sort of brake action. And you can't really test it, but you can see how she's trying to move right now. That's in its neutral position. But, you know, the transmission's not moving. I'm just moving the wheels, but this is like a limited slip, I don't know, open differential style. Now, when we release the handle, now it won't move really much at all. But you can see it's not really actuating because the brake pad is worn. So you still see a bit of movement there. But the most important thing for right now is that the brake comes off, the cables are working, and the cable is moving properly and is lubricated, and we're not all bound up. Last look. All right, good. Now this is kind of like a last look back here, because I want to drop it down now. We'll drop all this down, and I'm going to put the blades on. I want to drop the oil. There's a couple other things to do, but this looks really good. I can't put any more tension on it. We got to get up to the handle because something's not right with the handle. The handle is bent, and it's too much friction, and it's not actuating properly. So that's one of the next things. I need it down now to do that. Look, there's a peak at those old 40s jack stands. See them underneath there? I'm lifting it up. I'm going to pull this machine down in a minute, but yeah, those are nice. Let's see. Yeah, those are cool. Yeah, they're pretty old. I got them all kind of lubed up and cleaned up and wiped out, and everything is moving good now. And so, all right, let me get back to work. Not fooling around. So this one was getting stuck, and then it would either jerk forward and you couldn't stop it, or you couldn't get it going. It would occasionally get stuck. But watch. So down we go. No problem, right? It would get stuck down. And now this one is the blade engagement, and that one just felt hard to push, but now it's smooth, it's nice. So we got blade control. All right, and what else we got? So we're in neutral. So let's just start it, and let me get you to the front. I'm just going to engage everything just real quick, but you'll see how easy it goes. It's good. So what I was testing is if it's in gear, it's difficult to pull back when you release the handle. Okay, there's your brake, and that's what's helping to control the machine. So you can pull it because it needs new pads, but there's your brake. If you want to pull it backwards, either you put it in reverse or you put it in neutral and the gear shift lever, and then you can just pull it backwards, no problem. So that's proper function. I see we're good to go.